So agenda of today's class would be, we would be learning here about the agile estimation. We would try to understand how agile estimation is different from the traditional estimation technique. What are the measures which are used for estimation in agile, like story point, idle time, and where are the various estimation techniques which can be used for the estimation. So the first thing that we generally talk about in estimation is what actually estimation is, right? Why do we have a need to estimate? So we estimate is just to gauge or have to have some amount of idea about how much time we would do to complete some task, right? An estimate from an estimate on how much time I would take if I drive down from Delhi to Pune probably, or how much time I would take if I have to paint this big house, or probably what would be the time I would take if I have to paint a hut. So obviously it's the timing to paint a huge bungalow would be different, and the time to paint a small hut would be different. So that's an estimate, and it just not involves the estimate based on the time, based on the effort we drive, what is the cost, what is the value, or what is the final complete effort that would be spent in doing so. Right? So if I say 2 hours of effort would be there, right? And then what is the total cost I incur in doing that work? So if I am estimating on a per hour basis, it could be $10 per hour. So I would say it's 20 hours of that. My estimate is 20 hours. Okay? So before we do estimation of stories, let's understand what we were doing from a traditional project perspective, right? So let's make it little. Let's, rather than me telling you, let's discuss the traditional techniques. So for me, traditional was that I was never involved in the estimation. My manager would tell me, okay, this has to be done in 1 day or probably 8 hours, and this is how it was. There was no place where I was involved in estimation. It was never a case where somebody would have come and asked me that how much time would you take. So in Agile, there are 3 ways where we can which can be used for estimation. First is called expert opinion. Second is called analogy, and third is disaggregation. Okay. So what is expert opinion? I'm sure you would have used this technique.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody who is a domain expert or into this since long, and using his experience we can get the estimation.
Right. So generally what happens, you would have seen that huge companies, like the companies which are CMMI level 5 or CMMI level 4, they have this knowledge base, where everybody across projects, across globe, people have a repository where they dump in all the documents associated with their project. This could be even a simple closure report, probably a simple template of a defect report, or probably a simple template of release notes, right? So what generally we do, what happens in expert opinion is whenever there is a new project, so these companies look for a similar kind of a project in their DB, right? So based on that project knowledge, okay, if it was a creation of a login screen and it's a similar kind of a project, it took 20 days to create that. Let's take it as 20 days based on your previous experience, or somebody who worked in that project, architect or something, worked in that project would give the idea of okay, while we were working on that project, we did 10 days, but now it would just take I think in this scenario as well it would take 10 days, or probably we can quote it as 12 days. So that's expert opinion. Okay, analogy is something where you compare two things, right? I mean, let's do an exercise here. So when we say analogy, so let's look at this Hong Kong skyline, right? So if I ask you to estimate this building, how much time would I take to build this building? How would you do that? Anyone?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe the unitary method, that one floor will take how much, and twice, and compare that with, or multiplication.
Exactly. So what would you, so if I have to find a height of this building, so what I'll do is, if this building has 100 floors, and if one floor is of 3 meters of length, so this approximate height of this building would be somewhere around 3 meters.
300, yeah.
Right? So now if I have to calculate height of this building, so if by analogy I would do, okay, this is 300 meters and this looks like 1/4 of this building, somewhere around 1/4, right? It's not half, it's little smaller than the half, right? So it looks like 1/4, so 300 by 4 would be the size of this building. So this is by analogy. By comparing two, you compared this building with the bigger one. And now if you have to estimate this one, the smaller one, so the way you would do is, okay, now this building is half this. Right? This was divided by 4 is somewhere around 90 or what? Okay, whatever it is, so 90, so this divided by 2 is 45, so the height of this is 45. So this is driven by analogy method. Okay, so now here when we are talking about analogy, there are two terms which come up. One is the absolute estimation and another is the relative estimation. Right, so my calculation of this 300 meter was an absolute estimation. But when I said this is half this, was a relative estimation. Because here I was talking about absolute numbers. Right, so I did all the calculations. So I can't explain you probably in English, but I think this example can explain you. So here I was doing 100 into 300 meters, so I came up with some absolute number. But in this case I did not say it is 300 by 2, I just said this is half this building. So that was a relative estimate. So whatever length would be found from of this building, it would be just exactly the half. And similarly here, this is, I said, this is 1/4 this building's height. Clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the two terms I think you can just note down. So there could be a question or absolute and relative as well. Okay, now moving on to, and the third one is disaggregation. So this is the one technique which we use very heavily in Agile method. So this says that whenever you have a requirement, break down to a as granular level as you can. Okay, so whenever I have a requirement, so for example, now if I have a requirement to create a login screen, I will not say that completion of complete login screen would take 20 days. The way I would estimate is, okay, so there are three things involved: UI, field level validation, and creation of a landing page. For creation of a sign-in functionality, and then coming of a landing page. Okay, so I'll take 2 days in creating the UI. I'll take 6 days in implementing the field level validation. Then I'll take another 4 days to create the sign-in functionality and to create a landing page. Then I'll take 1 day to unit test it, and testing team will take probably 4 days to write the test cases, and execution of test cases would take another 1 day. So this level of estimates happened at a very granular level. You broke down your requirement to all to the minimum possible granular level, right? So here you were talking from creation of the test cases to execution of the test cases, creation of UI to implementing the complete story, to integrating the complete story. So this is how you divided your stories to requirement into a story, into task, and then those tasks were estimated. Clear? Okay. So this is a typical flow diagram of how the estimation of the project happens. So generally, the way it starts is so here as a user story we get a functional spec from our client. As a team, those functional specs are estimated, right? Then we'll drive a size, where size is nothing but a complexity of each functional requirement. Then from that size, estimate, effort and duration are derived. Based on the estimate, effort and duration, whatever we schedule our resources, and then a complete plan of how this project requirements would be implemented is drawn out by management. So this is like a typical flow of any estimation tech process. Agree? Any questions around this flow? Anything different you guys do?
It's clear, we can.
Okay. Okay. So initially, as we were mentioning that the estimates were done at a very initial stage. Either the pre-sales team, sales teams, or the managers would do the estimates for us, and there was no involvement of team. And they were based on the function points, as in, so they were not done at a very granular level, they were done at a very high level. But in Agile estimation, we do estimates on two bases. There are two aspects to it. One is the story point and second is the effort. So size or story point, whatever we call it, defines the complexity, and then based on that complexity, we define the total effort, or what are the idle days or idle hours. So guys, do you understand what is idle days?
Yeah. Wherein I assume that every resource of mine is available without any problem, so there is no risk. It's very idle world. Everything is fine, perfect. I'm getting 8 hours of every resource.
Not completely. So for me, the idle time would be, the time which is left after I deduct all the lunch hours, all the meetings, all the chit chats, you know.
Oh,
That would be the idle time.
That's the actual, right?
In terms of Agile, this is called the ideal time. What is the ideal time you have? The actual time is, and expected time to complete, and actual time is what is the actual time you spend completing something, right? So I'm sure you would have seen in various tools, like even in QC, when you have that where you create the requirement traceability metrics, there the tab which is there, whenever you estimate, there are two things: ETA and the actual time, expected time to complete, and actual time you took. Yeah, so measure of size, as Nidya pointed out, measure of size is nothing but the complexity, and that there are various terms, things that we can use to define the complexity, right? Complexity or the size, right? So last time we discussed about small, medium, extra large, and we also talked about the Fibonacci series, which is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on, right? So let's take a example here. A story that is assigned a point value 2 should be twice as much as story that is assigned a value point 1. So if I say, if I'm using my Fibonacci series, and if I say uh, size of my story 1A is 1 and the size of my story B is 4, that actually means, that should actually, or not exact calculation wise, but that should ideally mean that story B, which has a story point 4 value, is 4 times complex or maybe bigger than the story which has been assigned value 1. Similarly, if you are using t-shirt sizing, like small, medium, XL, small could mean that it is half the size of medium. It could mean it is 1/4 the size of. I mean, it depends upon what kind of a project you have. There again, there are some, the other way of defining, it depends upon the project to project as well. Other way of defining the story points or sizing is also the breed of dog, like Chihuahua is the smallest, so the small story side will be called as Chihuahua. Then the Labrador would be the medium one, the German Shepherd would be the, so it can be done the way you want. Right? If you want to make it your project little adventurous, you can call it whatever way you want. It could be name of any animal, or maybe name of some buildings around your place you are in, right? So or maybe the famous buildings. So it can be anything, but then it should be something which actually justifies the size. Okay, but it does not mean that something which is assigned complexity 1 would take or maybe 1 hour, and something which is assigned complexity 2 is a 2-hour effort, or maybe something which is 2 complexity takes 6 hours would not necessarily mean this, that it's something which takes has one complex story size would take 3 hours. It is not necessary. By the time you move into your project, you might come down to that figure, you might you might bring those figures out, but it is not necessary. It will again depend upon project to project. Okay? Clear?
Yeah. So this size means the index of complexity, you mean?
Yeah, index of complexity, or maybe how big it is.
Okay, so if we know for which user story we have to give the point 1, and from point 1 we can compare relatively and
yeah. So there you would probably use analogy, right? So let's take an example. Read functionality for an email, and probably compose functionality for an email. So if you have to assign a sizing to it, how would you do it? Maybe, so you say, so you started with compose, or you started with maybe read, right? You said it is 5 complexity because I need to read it, I have to fetch it from my database, it should be displayed properly. I would do a cross browser as well. I would see if there are special characters in my email, they are being read properly. So once I have read my email, it goes into it has a read mark to it. It is not in an unread format. So I say it has a lot of things that I would have to implement. So it's complexity 5, right? Now, when you came to the compose button, compose functionality, you would say, so it is probably less, it is 3. Because when I'm just composing, I just have to click a compose button and there is something blank screen or blank layout should come up. But then you're not implementing the rich text editor functionality or something. So you say it would take less effort. It would not take that much effort which that went into my read functionality. So you compare two of them.
So we take the less complex user story as point one, and we'll compare with others, right?
Yeah. So you start with the user story which is most prior. You start with the highest priority and then you move ahead. So always whenever you start estimation, always start with something which is highest priority. Once you estimate those, you can use analogy, you can use disaggregation, whatever suits you.
I see. So it's not based on the complexity, I mean the size. We have to estimate from based on the priority.
So when I am saying even login screen, right? You might not be able to estimate. You would say it has lot of backend implementations involved. So let's break that into task wise. You might want to break into to know the complexity. You need to know what are all things involved in implementing it, right? You will have to disaggregate it. You can't estimate it unless and until you don't know what actually is needed to be done there. What all activities would be involved. So there could be even when you talk about like now, so again it depends upon project to project. So for one project, I am not doing a security testing. For this project, for that kind of a project, a login screen is just 2 points. But for some project who is even doing a security testing, I have to make sure cookies are not being stored, they are expiring. I might have to do SQL injection on the password field. For me, the complexity has increased, right? Because there are so many things that I need to test, and if I have to test that, I need to implement it. For that kind of a project, the story point goes to probably 8 or probably 5, because there are so many tasks involved in it. There are so many things involved in it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so these are the various scales which we just talked about. T-shirts, this is XS, medium, large is the T-shirt sizing. This is the linear, 0, 1, 2, 3. So linear is not used much because, the range, you don't get a range. I mean, like in Fibonacci, there is a gap. After 3, there is 5, right? So something which is of 4 complexity you would always prefer putting it in a 5. You would not want to estimate less effort, you would always want to have a higher effort for it, right? So if linear is not used much, Fibonacci is the most used version. And then on the scale of 10, you can just use 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, 40, depends what you want to use. Fibonacci and the T-shirt sizing is the most used technique. Okay? So if we go back to the same example, so if I have to do a T-shirt sizing, this building, I'll start, this was the most important requirement, so I start here. So this could be, can you do this for me? Let's do this for this building. Let's do for this, and then let's do it for this one. Can you do a T-shirt sizing for me? Can you guys do this for me?
Extra small, medium, double XL.
Sorry, one by one. And India, for you it is?
Yeah.
This building is what for you? This one? Sorry?
Double XL.
And then?
Double XL. Yeah. This is XL.
XL or medium. Yeah, XL.
Medium.
Yeah, XL. Yeah.
And this is small, right? Now, one of you said this is double XL and one of you said medium, which is a huge difference if you see. So, if in a real life scenario, in such cases, what you would do, you would want to know from your T, the person who said medium, why does he think it's medium? And the person who said Excel, why does he think it's Excel? Right? Ideally, if you see, it's 75% of this building. Right? It's just 25% left. If this was triple Excel, for me it would have fallen in large or maybe Excel. So you need to discuss this and come to a common consensus. Why such a huge difference, right? So you have to brainstorm each other. So there could be a case where somebody overthought and somebody was underthinking, and you would get few more pointers to your estimates, and you would come to a common consensus there. And at the end you might agree that okay, it is not neither Excel, neither nor medium, it falls under large category. Okay, so for like in this case everybody was very clear, and even in this case everybody was very clear that it's Excel, triple Excel, sorry. What is okay? What happened? Just a sec. Sorry guys.
That's okay.
Okay? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's understand what is the story point. So story point is nothing but it's an arbitrary measure used by Scrum team. This is used to measure the effort required to implement that story. Clear? Any doubts on this? And
No, I didn't
ideal time
understand.
is sorry?
I didn't understand what's a story point. Can you give me some example?
Okay. So you have not got the complete concept? Okay, let's take an example then. Okay, so I give you three cars, four cars, let's say. One is Maruti 800. Another one is Ford EcoSport. Okay, the third car would be Toyota Altis, and the fourth is Hummer. Okay, I am a product owner, and for me, Ford EcoSport is the most important requirement. I mean, it's priority 1 for me. I need it ASAP. Okay, can you estimate it? Can you define the story point? Can you provide sizing to me for that? Can you guys do that? And we will discuss it one by one and each car at a time. So let's start with Ford EcoSport in that case. Once you are done, when you have defined a size, just let me know for Ford EcoSport.
I think it would be Excel. Like, since we have Hummer would be double Excel.
One car at a time, one car. So
Okay,
Ford
okay,
EcoSport for you is Excel, right?
Yeah, Excel, yeah.
Mathur, what about you?
I mean, which car? I mean, the higher priority is EcoSport. So we need to
Right,
give the size of EcoSport first, right?
Yeah.
It will be Excel, I think.
And for another you?
It could be large.
Large?
Yeah.
Let's take it large, right? Just for the sake of discussion. Had there been more team members and one would have thought it's medium. Let's say Anindya feels it's medium, right? So as a product owner or as a Scrum Master, I would want to know, Anindya, why do you think it's medium? He would have his points because obviously it's a simple, it's a LUV, it's not even XUV, SUV, sorry, it's not even SUV, it's very simple, even the body is very bland, it's very plain, there are no additional features that we are providing to it. So for me it's medium. But if I ask the same question to Matha, why do you feel it's Excel, you would have your reasons to it. Like what are your reasons? Probably you thought that the bumpers were given different kind of a shape, the engine was we were trying to create an engine which gave very less noise. That's why I thought it is Excel. Right? Oh, but then they did not think from that perspective. Oh yes, I did not think about engine. Okay, so we will do a second round of voting, and then you would come to a common. So probably you guys would end up saying large. Now, when I come now to Maruti 800, what would be the size of Maruti 800? Small. Right? Small, because you immediately compared it with EcoSpot. If it was large, then for you Maruti is obviously very teeny-weeny, it is small.
I actually compared it with Nano, so didn't say it extra small.
No, but then Nano is not your requirement, right? So you don't have to compare it with Nano.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And then my third important was Hummer. So what you will do is, we'll again compare it with EcoSpot. Oh, it's ultra huge as compared to EcoSpot. So it would be double XL or maybe triple XL. And then comes Altis. So where would it fall? It would be, if you thought Hummer was triple XL, then Altis would be double XL. It's bigger than EcoSpot but smaller than Hummer.
Yeah.
Right? So this is how you define the complexity, and this you define the size. Does that help, Matha? Yeah?
Yeah, understood. So the story points are the views of each member of the team, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so now so we calculated the story points. So what would be the use of story point ultimately? Do you see a use of having story points? Do you think, if you define the complexity, you define the size, would it be of any, would it add any value to your project?
Absolutely. It brings it brings all the point on the plate which might have missed if we have thought in a silos, or
Right. Any other benefit do you see?
we might not be missing on any important observations.
Exactly.
or features.
So had you not done this exercise,
it helps prioritize actually.
yes. So had you not done this exercise, you would have started just working without, there were so many brainstorming things that you would have missed out, right? So now while we were discussing about EcoSpot, Anindya realized that he was not keeping engine in his mind while he was thinking about this requirement. There has to be, I want my engine to be sound free, which makes it little complex. Alright? So it gives you, whenever two or more people are thinking, it gives you a broader platform, it gives you more brainstorming techniques. It helps you completely define the requirement. It helps you uncover the areas which as a person in Xylo would not have thought of. And then the sum of all the story points for that particular iteration gives you velocity. Please, this is a very important question. Velocity is always asked in your exam. What is velocity? Sum of all the story points which were completed in an iteration is velocity. So velocity is always calculated of the story points which are 100% complete. So if I was working on a story point which was 8 and it was 50% complete, it will be not calculated in my velocity. So now, how would velocity benefit you? So now, in 3 weeks of time, in my first iteration, my team could deliver 10 velocity. It could deliver me 10 story points, 10, right? 2, 3, and 5. So now I have a rough idea that my team's velocity for coming iterations is 10. So whenever I will pick stories, I would make sure that I only pick stories whose story points when summed up becomes 10. I would not, if in future if time permit, I would pick up, but to start with, I will only pick stories which sum up to my 10 velocity. Confused, clear, need more explanation?
Yeah. So in Fibonacci sequence, you are taking 2, 3, 5 story. When you say 2 as a story, means 2 was its value out of the estimation.
Yes, 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 yes. So
But it has but it has nothing to do with the number of features or something, right? I mean, it's the
no,
complexity.
no. So nothing. It's just the complexity. Yeah.
Okay, it's just a complexity value. So 2 was its complexity, 3 was another complexity, and 5 was another complexity, and
Yes, yes.
all the 3 were completed, and so the sum or the velocity is 10.
100. 10, sorry.
10, 100%, yeah, 10.
Yeah. So it's not 100%, so it was 10, right?
10.
So whenever I'll estimate my now next, I would not dare to pick up something more than 10.
Understood.
Because
Yeah.
I would know that these 3 stories were just completed at nick of time. So if I was so comfortable and my team was so comfortable and relaxed while completing these stories, I would try to pick up maybe 12. Right? If I thought I would complete 10 and then I could not even complete 10, I just picked up 5. So in my next iteration, I would not pick up 10. I would try to pick up only 5. Save some time, then only I'll pick up the next story. And depending upon the time saved.
Agree.
Right? So this is how velocity helps you. Okay? So velocity is the sum of all the stories points delivered in one iteration. Some is only done for story points which are completed 100%. Even if something is completed 95%, like development was complete, everything was complete, but you just could not deploy it. Even in that case, you don't assume that under your velocity. If it's not 100%, it's not assumed as completed story, and it will not be used to calculate the velocity. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do a quick anticipation. If a team can complete 10 story points in an iteration, then how long will it take for team to complete 100 story points? How many iterations would be there?
Okay.
All done? Mathar Debajoti?
Yeah, it's 10 I think.
Yeah.
10 iterations?
Yeah.
Clear?
Yeah.
So does that help? That helps you
I could not
plan.
get the question. Could you just repeat once more?
Okay. So if a team can complete 10 story points in an iteration, then how long will it take for the team to complete 100 story points? Okay.
Just a unitary calculation, Devajyoti.
It's simple unitary calculation. If I completed 10 story points, like 2, 3 and 5, then 100 stories would be complete, 100 story points would take 10 iterations, and a simple calculation for a management, one iteration is 3 weeks, it means it's a project of 30 weeks, approximately.
Wow, that's nice, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense? Debajit, clear? Yes, no?
Here we can proceed.
Okay.
Yeah, did not get the question actually.
Devajyoti, in one iteration, we could complete 10 story points. 10 story point could be, you know, sum of, you know, whatever. I mean, how to break down this question?
Okay, let me do that for you. Okay, so one story point, sorry, in one iteration, my one iteration is 3 weeks. My team was able to deliver 10 story points. Now, 10 story points could be 2 stories of 5 sizes, 5 plus 5. It could be 1, 2, 3 and 5.
I wanted to say
Right.
that.
Depending upon the sizing aspect I used, it could be anything. Now, when I estimated, I found all the stories summed up to 100 story points. So if I could deliver in one iteration 10 story points, it means I will take 10 iterations to complete 100 story points.
Right. So that means 10 velocities, right?
Right, 10 velocity.
Okay.
10 was velocity. So based on that velocity, I calculated that it's a project of 10 iterations. 10 iterations, if one was 3 weeks, so it's a project of 3 weeks. So this is how this breaks down to a further level, how it helps management.
Okay, yeah.
So here let's take another example. Agile team has started work on an iteration, planning to complete stories A and B. At the end of the at the end of the iteration, stories A and C are 100% complete, but B is 80% complete. So would you consider your story B part of that particular iteration? No, right? Because it was 80% complete. So Agile teams has only 2 levels of completion. One is 0% done or 100%, but there is no terminology called partial complete. Okay. Therefore, B is not counted and the velocity of that iteration is 8%. Now the question is, the velocity of that iteration was 8%. Probably sum of A and C was 8, 4, 4, 3 plus 3 or 5, something of that sort. Okay. So if user stories remaining represent total of 88 points, that means I would need further 11 iterations to complete my 88 story points. Got it?
The stories or some user story points gets spilled over. Like what if some part of the prior story gets spilled over to the next iteration? So we have to replan in that.
Yeah, you will have to replan it.
Yeah, so I mean, so that iteration will not be taken as a complete one, right? And
yes. In case if I just had one story and even that could not be complete, so
in that
we lost your voice, Devajyoti.
My voice. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So my question was like, if suppose I have 10 iterations, right? And I completed A, and then like during B, some point of my story did not get complete, and it had to be what do I do in that case? I spill that over to C or
nullified.
Nullified. So now C. So now now C would be counted as B. I mean, iteration C would. I mean, there's no there won't be an existence called B anymore, right?
No, but you would anyways have to do it. You would pick
Or
that
is
in
it
a
like we'll just have some? So I mean that is what. So that next iteration would then spoil my plans for C. Like, and it goes on, right?
So in that case, your number of iterations would increase.
Right. So that is that can be done. I mean.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that if 11 iterations have been calculated and you have to complete it in 11 iterations. No, that is not the case. But then that is a point where you need to do a replanning. You need to try and understand what went wrong.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here. So if we start from the very beginning of this question, I as a team plan to complete A and B. A I could complete 100% and B 80%. So instead of completing B 100%, I picked up C and completed 100%.
Yeah, I think this was this has not been framed properly. My target was that I wanted to complete A, B, and C actually.
Ah, right. Okay. Then it is fine. I was okay. So that is fine. So for me, B is not to be considered because it's not 100. So I have to consider A and C. Okay. This is fine. And velocity of that iteration is 8 points. So okay, 8 points as in sum of A and C would be 8 points. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and if user story remaining request a total of 88 points.
Remaining represent.
Represent, yeah. Then obviously, so it's the same thing, right? One iteration, I have the capability or ability to complete 8 points. So 88 points means 100 iterations. I would.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So ideal days, it is the number of days you would normally expect a developer to be productive during a typical day, subtracting the time for meetings, lunch breaks, etc. It would take minimum time to work on something if you have no interruptions and everything you need is available. So this is a very ideal scenario where you have no distraction. Whatever you need to do, your task is available. There were no impediments. Everything was hunky-dory. Everything went very well. Right? And the elapsed time is the actual time it will take to complete the story. So, for example, if the ideal time of a basketball game is 40 minutes, okay, the elapsed time is much longer than 2 hours. Because you took a elapsed time of what? You took a break in between, right? Some of your team members got the yellow card and the game got stretched. One of the person got injured, and since the medical team was in, you guys had to put a halt. But actual game just went for 40 minutes, but to achieve the target of those 40 minutes, what was needed to, what was your end, to get that end goal, you spent 2 hours. Got it?
Yes.
So I have planned my story, some story which was of 5 hours, but I completed that story in 2 hours. Right? So my actual working time was 5 hours, but then I did some, since my testing team was testing, I got into discussion with my testing team. They found some bug and I was trying to analyze it. Why is it? Because I could not see that bug. I needed some clarification. I was having a meeting with the product owner. You know, to achieve that 5 hours, you spent additional 3 hours to complete the target, to achieve what was actually required to, you know. So that's your elapsed time. So your elapsed time was 8 hours, while your actual ideal time was 5 hours. So had there been no distraction, everything would have been smooth. You would have just spent 5 hours. So that was your very ideal time. Okay?
Yeah.
A quick question. In agile development, when a developer estimates a story point by gauging the amount of effort required to complete a task based on amount of time, he will have to focus exclusively on a task with no interruptions. What estimate unit is he using?
That's easy.
Shall I show the answer?
Yeah, idle.
Debajyoti, Mathur?
Yeah, ideal, I think.
Exactly. So that's ideal time. Clear? Okay. So now you know the difference between both the approaches, story point and idle days.
Let us read it.
So story points is nothing but it's just the measure of a size, but whereas idle days is a measure of how what is the effective time you would need to complete that task. So story point is not 2 and 3 doesn't depict your hours. The store size that you have defined doesn't depict the hours. But idle days would be either in a day, like if it's a 4 hours effort, it would be 0.5 day, right? Or maybe 4 hours, the way you want to put it. But the 2, 3 Fibonacci does not define the hours. Estimating in story points is typically faster. Idle days can force companies to confront time-wasting activities. So when you are doing it in story points, you would not get to a level where you are discussing. No, I will have to. I will have scrum of scrums. You will just focus on what all activities are there in your story. But when you start estimating in the days, idle days, you would start thinking about every possible way. No, I'll go out for lunch. I have my calendar is too blocked this week, so I would not be able to complete it in 3 hours. It would take more time. The chances of getting distracted are more in idle days. Then idle days are for estimation in number of the effort, while story point is the estimation of a size. Okay?
Last point is a bit confusing. I mean, both are for estimation, but
they are for estimation, but the story point is for estimation of the size,
yes.
Whereas idle days is the estimation of hours, time.
So what is
Traditional and agile?
what was the takeaway from? So what was the takeaway from this? I mean, is story point is better than idle time, or maybe in large projects maybe?
Story point is a quicker way of doing it.
Okay, is a quicker point of doing it. Yeah. So is there any time when I would go for an idle time and not the story?
After you have the complexity defined, when you know the sizes based on, probably you would not be able to do it in your first iteration, but then once you are 1 year, 2, 3 iterations old, you would be able to do it, because by then you would have an idea. Okay, generally something which I estimate for 2 story points generally takes 4 hours, right? So based on that you would start defining your hours, but in the first few iterations you would not be able to do that.
Okay. It's
right?
Always better to start with defining the points. Yeah, story
Yes.
points. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Any other question?
No.
Mathur, is it clear? The speed was okay?
Yeah, it's clear, but I have a question. The estimation is for us, for our company or to the client, because we calculate based on the ideal time. So we charge the client based on the ideal time or the elapsed time?
No. So let me park this question for a while. We will do an exercise where you will get the answer to this question.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question? Okay, so guys, are you clear with how agile and traditional ways are different? I have reiterated it I think a couple of times now, but do you have any doubts? You can just read the points in the screen, and if you have any doubt, probably we can discuss that particular point, because I think we have talked about it a couple of times now. An estimate by analogy. So we have talked about this as well. So now if we have to look at this picture, if I say this bigger house was, though I have given you the estimate as well now. So this bigger house was is of high priority. So I would start with it. So let's say if I give it a size large. So by analogy, I'll just compare it with my the second house with the first house and say, okay, this is smaller than the first house, so it is obviously small, right? So analogy is based on the programmatic information, physical characteristics, performance, practices, contract specific and economic trends. Any doubts on estimate by analogy? I mean, we have talked about it, so I did not get into the detail, so I just reiterated what we discussed. Should I move ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there are two techniques that we will be talking about in the estimation. One is Wideband Delphi, another is planning poker. So have you ever used Wideband Delphi before? Anyone? Planning poker, I'm sure since you guys don't have much experience of working in Agile, so planning poker would not have been used for sure. But Wideband Delphi is generally used when you are doing a brainstorming, or maybe you are having workshops. It is used there as well. Anyone of you have used or have some idea about it? No? Guys, where are you? Yes, no, nothing.
Yes, but forgot what it was. I mean, I have used Delphi.
Okay, let me then start. Okay. So Wideband Delphi is nothing but our estimation technique where estimations are derived from the consensus. So in this, a complete team is not involved. A team is selected. So once you have the requirements, you might choose two people from testing, two people from dev team, one arc, one probably from a configuration team. So you select you as in your manager or probably the product owner would select a team, would have a representatives from each team. This is the first step. Once a team is selected, you have a kickoff meeting where you define the purpose of having those selected members. Right, so you tell them that these are the 5 stories that we need to estimate. These would be the part of this sprint, and these are the 5 stories we need to estimate. You give them a initial background. That's your kickoff meeting, and then there happens an individual preparation. Now here you are not sitting in a one common area and discussing about it, talking. You go back. And in Xylo, you estimate all the 5 requirements. That's your individual preparation, right? Then you have an estimation session where every one of you come, tell what was your estimate, how much did you estimate, and then based on the discussions you come to one common estimate. Okay, and then you collaborate all the tasks which were involved in that particular requirement, and you review the final results. So just now when we were doing this estimation of the building, we followed Wideband Delphi. Did you realize now that? I gave you the requirement, right? I told you not to discuss it with each other, do it at an individual level. So that was your individual preparation. Then came together in a group and we discussed it. And India mentioned medium, Mathur mentioned extra large. Then we discussed it, why it was medium and extra large. Right? And then we, based on the discussion, came to a consensus that it was not medium, it was not extra large, it was large. This was a wideband Delphi. Had I not asked you to discuss, think about it individually and discuss it together, it would have been a different technique. Okay?
Yeah, clear.
So the first is the team selection. I'll just quickly read it. Chooses an estimation team that includes the representatives from all the project areas. Every team member should have stake in the plan, understand the Delphi process. Then there is a moderator, the one who understands the Delphi process but has no stake in the results. So the one who would be conducting the meeting and who would be initiating the kickoff meetings and everything would have no say. He can just cross question them, why do you think so and why do you not so, but he cannot give his inputs. If you think 2, for me, hearing to everyone, I think 3. He cannot give his inputs. He's just a moderator. Observer could be a product owner or the stakeholders who could clarify various doubts which you have. Okay. Then is the entry criteria. So the entry criteria for this kind of having all the set of requirements, having a kickoff meeting, defining the ground rules for the meeting, and defining the ground rules for estimation as well. And all the roles are defined. So somebody is an observer, somebody is a moderator. Okay, so this would be the entry criteria for the Wideband Delphi. Then there is a kickoff meeting where we explain what is the Wideband Delphi. We try to explain the ground rules. We try to tell them the prerequisites. We brainstorm and note down the assumptions. And we decide upon the unit of estimation, right? There could be a case that you thought, okay, let me do estimate in a t-shirt sizing, and Derbajyoti came up with Fibonacci series. And you would spend some effort then in collating them that, okay, if you are small, let me put it 1, and you would do that. So there should be one common estimation unit that you should be using at. Okay, then this comes individual preparation where you go back to your seats and decide and estimate each task. You add missing assumptions, and then the estimation session happens. Moderator shares the estimate so that estimators can see the range of the estimates, and then the group discussions happen. Then the tasks are assembled and the results are reviewed. Any doubts?
No.
Okay, so let's take an example. There are 3 estimators, A, B, and C. They are told to prepare the time required to prepare the test scenario for the project. The initial estimations that were provided were 18, 38, and 58. Okay. So now, when the individual contributors came and told these 3 estimations, why do you think that moderator chose 38?
Somebody who is A would be the most expert. C would be very fresh. So A can always help C, and B is someone who is like, in between. So A can always bring up the performance of C, and B and can make him B, and ultimately the output would be of the level B. I mean, that's the average. Just thinking along.
Another thought could be that A did not think of all the requirements nicely, right? All the basic things that are needed to complete that requirement. And C overthought, probably. right? And then they would obviously have a discussion. Then the moderator can always go back and ask A, I mean not go back, but within that meeting, why did A think it was 18 hours and why did C think it was 58 hours? And then based on the discussions, they could come to common consensus, which is 38 hours, right? Or it could be, or it's not necessary that it would be always 30. It would be always the average. It could be that even while A and C were arguing and they were discussing, B realized that one of the points even he missed out. If in that case, if he came up with 58, the estimate would have been 58. Or maybe he would come down to 18. Oh, no, these are the things very basic or very simple. Because obviously the observers, the product owners would be resolving their queries as well, right? We at that particular time might change estimates to 18. And then the final estimate for that story would have been 18. But in cases, if neither one of them are ready to move, then the average is taken.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Similarly, this is an example. Average was taken. Let's take a quick look at a question. Wideband Delphi is a repeatable process that can be used to generate estimate, to create a story, for implementation of purpose, and to motivate the team.
Yeah.
To generate an estimate. Clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now this is one of the most interesting part. Okay. I wish we were really face to face because this is very nice exercise. So, have you guys seen the poker cards?
Yes.
These are the ones you see in image are poker cards, planning poker cards. This one. So these are nothing but a plain cards with Fibonacci series printed on them. Okay.
Okay.
So what exactly we do? Let's start. So in this kind of a estimation technique, complete team is involved. Scrum Master is there, product owner is there. Okay, so what is the responsibility of a product owner? Why would product owner be needed there?
He would know the product well and any enhancement, addition, removal, any release plans.
Right. And why would be Scrum Master there? Why would we need Scrum Master?
He knows the processes about the agile, so he can take care of.
Yes, he would guide team. He would not let them deviate.
Right. From the agile.
Yes. So what happens is each team member is given a complete deck. Deck as in he would have all the cards with numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, 18, 8, 13 and so on. Okay? And on a big screen, Scrum Master would have all the requirements listed in a priority. Fine? So, Scrum Master would read each requirement one by one. Okay? And team would estimate it there in a common room. They will discuss that and come with and vote. So like had we been there in the common room, I would have read the requirement, you guys would have thought it, and then you would have, once I say show, you would show the card. Like if you felt some story is 5, you would have shown the card of 5. We will do a game to explain this question. Okay? And then probably Devajyoti said 3 and Mathur said 8. Devajyoti and Mathur would discuss, they would ask questions to product owner. Product owner would resolve their queries. And there is then again, after all the queries are resolved, there happens a second round of voting. After 60 seconds, Scrum Master again asks show, and then they show a card again. Like it could be now 553, and now the estimate is 5. Okay. So here the only catch is, so even after 3 sets of voting, the estimates come like 3, 5 and 8. In that case, a mean value, average value is taken and estimate would be considered as 5. Okay, you don't go beyond three sets of voting. Okay. Let's take an example. Give me a second, guys. Give me a second. Vikas, इन्हों को ना green वाली फ्रॉक निकाल देना. इन्हें सुने? इन्हों की green वाली जिसके बर्थडे पे फ्रॉक पहनते रेड और ग्रीन वाली को निकाल लो ये है दिस जोन में जाकर. Okay. Yeah. Now let's take a story. As a student, I want to purchase a parking pass so that I can drive to school. In this case, this is the estimation team. This is my estimation team, which is Ted, Sue, and Bob. My facilitator is Ralph. He could be the Scrum Master, and my product owner is Kelly. Okay? So when I say we begin the first round of voting, facilitator Ralph would ask Ted, Sue, and Bob to vote. Based on the requirement, as a student, I want to purchase a parking pass so that I can drive to school. Estimation teams can choose to ask questions to the product owner, or maybe they can have their own assumptions. Okay? Now, when Ralph says vote, what does Ted, Sue, and Bob say? Okay, Bob says 8, Sue says 5, Ted says 3. Here, Ralph would ask Bob, why does he think it's 8, and Ted, why does he think it's 3? Let's hear out what Bob and Ted. So now Bob says, pass can be issued only for 1 month, hence I would have to renew it every month. So since it would have renewal policy every month, it is a little complex story. But Ted says, oh, I thought 1 pass would work for whole year, so I just issue it once and it's done. So I thought it's 3. Okay, so now they tell what they thought. Based on the inputs given by Ted and Bob, Kelly being the product owner would clarify. So now Kelly says, oh, I just wrote a pass, but it should be a monthly pass. And without student ID, passes will not be issued. Right? Now there were some changes in the requirement. As a student, I should be able to issue a monthly pass, so that without student ID, passes will not be issued. Now, based on the inputs given by Kelly, Ralph would again ask us go for a second round of voting. Oh, another thing could be, there could be a question as well. When he gives that information, Sue might ask, what's an ID? So Kelly would clarify, it's that students would be currently enrolled and has a proof. Okay, there could be cross questions as well. There could be deviations as well. And the deviation could be, Bob saying I lost my ID. And then Ralph being the Scrum Master would guide the team to stay focused, because that's not part of the discussion. Okay. Now, Ralph would again ask to go for a second round of voting, or if there are more questions, they could be clarified. Like here, the other question was, how many passes can one student buy? So the product owner says it's just 1 student per pass. So now you're getting the acceptance criteria is defined, right? So even for a testing team, these acceptance criteria would matter, because the test scenarios would be based out on these, right?
Yes.
In this discussion, you are also defining your acceptance criteria. Since now there are no more questions, so Ralph asks for us new voting. Now this time Bob says 3, Sue has 5, and Ted has 8. Did you notice the requirement, the voting numbers size completely changed? Last time Bob said 8, Ted said 3. Okay, so now Ralph will again question Ted and Bob. Why does he feel 8 and why does he feel 3? So the Bob would say, last time Ted was right, it's simple, so renewal fresh passes every month instead of year. So nothing more, okay, instead of 365 days, I'm just putting 3 days, 30 days. So it's again simple. It's simple, right? So Ted says, no, Bob was right last time, we would need 8 because there is a renewal happening, we need to verify the ID as well, so it is a little complex, so it will take 8. Okay? So Stu says, for me, 5 is just right. Then Ralph asked Kelly to respond. If there is something more to be added to the requirement, there are more acceptance criteria associated with it. Okay, so the Kelly says students without enough money would not be issued pass, and it will be a renewal of existing passes. There would be no credit facility, and it would be existing, no new passes would be issued, it would be just the renewal. Okay? Okay. So suppose this, there are no more questions and they go over third round of voting. Now after this, everybody felt it was 5, 5, 5, and the size of that story now with the consensus came out to be 5. Okay. Now there was this question by Mathur that for whom the estimates would be done. Mathur, does that answer your question? Since Kelly product owners are involved at every stage, so it's the estimate which is done even for the client. So the estimates for client and for the internal teams are same. Because here you are not estimating the time, here you are estimating the complexity. You might want to add some buffer when you go down to a complex time level, when you are going beyond complexities.